Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course on heat and mass transfer. Today we will look at the concluding part of the topic heat exchangers. Before we start today's lecture, let us look what we have done in the previous lecture. So, today is lecture number 27. Let us look what did we do last time. So, these are some images of heat exchangers that are around us, and these are some correlations related to the correction factor. But what we did actually last time was we started off with this solved example where we wanted to understand the concept of LMTD, log mean temperature difference, and we have looked at very simple case. And interestingly, we will redo the same thing today with the second method. So, I had written last time this is method number 1 LMTD, and today we will look at the same problem with the epsilon NTU method. So, here essentially we have hot oil entering from one side, it is being cooled with the help of cold water entering from the other side, and lot of parameters such as mass flow rate, overall heat transfer coefficient were known. First we wanted to do a first we had to do an energy balance in order to evaluate the water outlet temperature, and next we had to figure out what is the area of this particular heat exchanger. So, we started off with the simple steps like energy balance, we could obtain the water outlet temperature 93, then we could plug it in over here, make a very nice drawing like this with red and blue color, so that we can get a clear picturization of what exactly is happening. Step 2 we followed by calculating the log mean temperature difference with the standard equation over here, and we got the log mean temperature difference of about 19 degrees, which we plugged in this equation, and we got the overall area of the heat exchanger as about 23.5 meters. So, what we are going to do today is I have highlighted this with red color, sorry, yellow color, that we will do the whole calculation again with method number 2, which we will do today, and try and see if we get the same result or close to that. Then we looked into detail at different type of heat exchangers, because till now for sake of simplicity and for understanding and better comprehension, we have looked at parallel flow heat exchanger and counter flow heat exchanger. Next we wanted to look at slightly more applicable heat exchanger that we see around us, and those are shell and tube type and cross flow heat exchanger. So, as shown over here, shell and tube type consist of two sides, one is the shell side and the other one is the tube side. So, we can put lot of baffles inside over here in order to enhance the contact between the two particular fluids, and we can have various configurations of shell and tube type. So, over here just for illustration we spent some time looked at these 4 cases, which I can call it A, B, C and D, and those 4 configurations details are given over here. In all these 4 cases, the shell side fluid passes only once. So, all 4 are one shell pass as mentioned over here, and then as we go from A to B to C to D, we are increasing the number of tube sides. So, in case A we are having one tube pass as shown over here with the red arrows, it goes once over here. Then we have two tube pass where the red arrow travels once in this direction, and then I have written this number 2 over here. So, there are 2 tube passes. Then we can also have 3 tube passes where the fluid enters from one side of the tube over here, goes back and then goes back around the third time over here. So, we have 3 tube passes, and we can keep on increasing it like shown over here. This is the 4th tube pass over here. So, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So, it was a playful exercise, we learned quite a lot of things from it. Then we wanted to double it, we wanted to look at the 2 shell pass as shown in the blue arrow over here. The fluid travelling in the shell goes once this way, and then it turns around, goes the other way once. So, 1 plus 1 we get 2 shell passes shown with the blue number over here. And then what we wanted to do, all these 4 cases A, B, C, D are 2 shell passes, and we wanted to see if I increase the number of tube passes, how would it look like. So, it is a very simple exercise, but just for comprehension sake we did it. In this case we have 4 tube passes, it goes once over here, once there, and then once over here, then similarly 6, and then similarly finally 8 over here. And I talked in terms of compactness that over if we use these type of heat exchangers like shell and tube and cross flow, we will get very high values of meter square per unit volume, which is what commercializes a heat exchanger very nicely. Because this is something which people do not want, that the huge area is being, huge volume is required to accommodate that particular area. Rather, can it be accommodated by turning the tubes around in this fashion over here. So, 50 meters in this way nobody is going to allow, but if we can have it in serpentine structure or in the different structure, then perhaps the effective length over here is still 50 meters, the effective length. So, the actual dimension could be less, maybe it is 4 meter or 5 meter. So, these numbers I am just putting for clarification purpose only. So, after looking at shell and tube type, we then looked at the cross flow heat exchanger, where the flow direction is actually normal to one another. So, it is kind of perpendicular to one another. So, the blue arrows show the one of the fluid travelling inside these tubes, and the orange arrows show over here that the other fluid is actually travelling over these tubes. So, cross flow are again examples of compact heat exchangers, and it can be mixed and unmixed. If you want to keep it unmixed, then we put these kind of green sheets over here. So, like shown in green color over here, so that the fluid which is entering comes out at different temperatures over here. And we saw the tables and figures for the correction factor for these cases, and the equation is very simple in that case. We assume all these heat exchangers to be counter flow heat exchangers just for the sake of calculation of the LMTD value. So, we assume it is a counter flow for the little while, and we calculate LMTD value, and then we multiply it with the correction factor, which is obtained either through tables or through some figures. Once we do this exercise, we get the actual value of the LMTD. So, these are things that we have looked at in last lecture, and today we wanted to start very interesting topic related to heat exchangers, which is summarized over here, which is the epsilon NTU method. So, this was the number 2 method that we were discussing earlier. So, let us go ahead and look at that what type of tables and graphs and curves will we be using. But in order to figure it out, we have to start from the very basics. So, let me write this down over here. We are going to look at the second method, which is the epsilon NTU method, and here epsilon stands for effectiveness and NTU stands for number of transfer units. So, I think students may remember epsilon value we have studied earlier as well when we were looking at extended surfaces in conduction. So, what was the definition of epsilon or effectiveness for a extended surface or a fin? So, that was something like what is the actual heat transfer enhancement with fin and without fin. So, we wanted to figure out how much improvement was there, and the same thing we want to do over here, that what is the actual rate of heat transfer in any of these cases. For example, it could be parallel flow, counter flow, cross flow or with shell and tube type. In each one of them, once the fluid exchange heat, we can quantify it. Let us say we figure out that 2 kilowatt of heat is being actually exchanged, and then we want to take a ratio of that, what was the maximum possible heat transfer over there. If let us say if turns out to be maximum was possible was 5 and actually we are getting 2. So, we get the ratio 2 by 5, then we say effectiveness is about 40%. So, this is where we will begin this particular method. Now, whatever I said verbally, let me define it more formally right now. So, what I am going to do is define the effectiveness with symbol epsilon as this definition over here. Q dot actual divided by Q dot max. This would be a percentage number, and this we are talking in terms of the context of heat exchangers. Now, Q dot actual is very straightforward. I will just measure what is the temperature drop. I know the mass flow rate taking place. I know the specific heat of both the fluids. So, Q dot actual is actually not difficult to figure out. What is the concept of Q dot max? What is the concept of maximum heat transfer possible? In order to introduce that concept, let me make some drawings over here, and I am going to take the case of counter flow, and I am going to take the same example that we have taken earlier, slightly modify the temperatures over here. So, what I am going to do is draw something like this. So, let us say this is my hot fluid which comes down from 90 degree to 80 degree. Maybe I will draw it with red color so that it is consistent throughout. So, this is the hot fluid, and my cold fluid is such that it goes from very low temperatures to over here. So, this is the cold fluid. So, what I am going to do is I am going to do a thought exercise in which should I put some numbers over here? Okay, I'll go ahead and put some numbers as well. So, let us say this is 10 degrees, this is 70 degrees. So, we know it from the diagram that this looks like a diagram for a counter flow heat exchanger, right. So, I do not need to draw the schematic because we have been doing it a lot of times in the past few lectures. So, I am going to assume everybody remembers what a counter flow heat exchanger is. Now, the thought experiment that I am going to do now is I will keep everything fixed for the hot side or the red side, and what I want to do is play around with the blue side or the cold fluid. And the way I want to play around is I will not change its physical property, which means its specific heat will remain the same. I will play around with the delta T and its mass flow rate. So, how am I going to do that? I will ask a question by putting some numbers over here. I will say okay, this must have some mass flow rate of water which was going through it. Let me take that mass flow rate of this cold side as 1 kgs per second. Okay. I am not worried about the hot side because I am not changing anything over there. The cold side mass flow rate, let us say there is some valve or a knob which I can increase or close, just like the taps or faucet in our house, in kitchen and bathroom. I can move that valve around, make the opening bigger and smaller, and then try and see what is going to happen. In the direction that I am going to move is, I am going to try and close the valve a little bit, just a little bit, which means I am forcing less mass flow rate through the cold side. In other words, I want to make this 1 kg per second little bit less, let us say 0.9 kgs per second. Let us try and see what will happen then. So, if I go back to the slide, if this becomes, in the second case, this was my original case which I will say is case 1. In the second case, if I make it 0.9 kgs per second, everything else I am keeping same, which means the total Q dot remains the same as earlier, which means I can say m dot h I am reducing, Cp I am keeping same, which means Th, sorry, this is not H, this is C, I am sorry. I am writing in blue because this is the cold fluid. So, I have to put the subscript C, sorry about that. So, this temperature difference is T C out minus T C in. Okay. So, I am going to put a green circle around m dot C and put this green arrow with a downward sign, which means I am reducing the value of the mass flow rate of the cold fluid, keeping everything else same, which tells me that mathematically, even if it is not possible physically, mathematically my delta T has to rise, which means if I reduce the amount of flow rate of oil just a little bit from 1 kg per second to 0.9 kg per second, inlet temperature of the cold fluid is fixed. It is 10 degrees, but the outlet will not be now at 70 degree. It may increase a little bit, and I can figure out the exact number by doing the energy balance. So, all this long story which I am telling is just to make this particular point, that if I go from 1 kg per second to 0.9, my temperature of the cold fluid outlet increases a little bit. I hope you are with me over here. If I reduce it a little bit further, if I make it 0.8, let us say, then it is going to increase little bit more, isn't it? So, this is a new curve over here. So, do not remember these numbers, this 1 or 0.9, 0.8, they by themselves do not mean anything. The direction in which we are going means everything, which means we are trying to reduce the mass flow rate. How much further can I reduce the mass flow rate? There will be a point where I have reduced the mass flow rate of water in such a way that the exit temperature of water becomes 90 degree. This is possible, right? So, when I am traveling in this direction, maybe I will use a purple color, over in this direction m dot c reduces. So, now comes the interesting part. If I further reduce the mass flow rate of water, can it retain its direction, which means can it go more than 90 degree? So, I think we all will agree it can never go more than 90 degree, which means in a way by this thought exercise we have kind of figured out what is the maximum temperature difference which is possible over here. And we have also figured out when we play around with the mass flow rate in which direction does it actually travel. I could have come to the same conclusion much earlier, but I just wanted to show this exercise over here, which means the maximum temperature difference over here clearly is between 10 degree and 90 degree over here. Now, this exercise of process will help us very much, because now I can correlate with this q dot max, because this q dot max is going to occur when my delta T, the temperature difference, is going to be maximum. So, according to this diagram on the right hand side, I can clearly say numerically in this case it is 90 degree minus 10 degree and it is equal to 80 degree. If I have to write in terms of variables, can I write it in this way? What is 90 degree over here represent? It represents the hot fluid inlet. So, it is T H in, which means it is T H in. What does 10 degree represent over here? This is the water inlet temperature, which means it is T C in. Now, I can make this general statement that delta max for any heat exchanger is equal to this thing. So, I will erase this particular green line and then draw it like this. I hope the students are with me over here. The delta T max, irrespective of doing that thought exercise, it is just the two extreme temperatures and I am taking a difference between them. I hope this point is very clear. Based on this delta T max, now I can go ahead and say that I can figure out a way of writing q dot max. And how I am going to do that? Let me take another step, and what I am going to do is the following. I am going to write that this q dot max, maybe I will use the next page. Can I do that? Let us do that. I will take a fresh page over here. Okay. And one more thing I want to define before I go first is I will just define a small parameter, which is m dot into Cp of anything I can define with this capital C, and this one I am calling as the heat capacity rate. What it means over here, that if I am talking about the hot fluid, I will write m dot h Cph multiplied by Cph, this is h, then this capital C will becomes h, C with a subscript h. Okay. And when I am writing it for the cold fluid, m dot C, then I multiply it with specific heat C, then what I get is the heat capacity rate is capital C with the small subscript c over here. So, do not get confused, there are too many c's over here, one is for cold, one is for specific heat, one is for heat capacity rate. So, do not worry, if you remember those symbols, I think it is very easy and straightforward to figure out, which means over here having defined these two particular variables, now can I write that q dot max is a function of delta T max, and what should I write over here? One option is, let me write all the options which I can use over here. Should I write CH, or should I write CC, or is there anything else that I can write? So, if you give a thought experiment over here, what it would suggest is we have to take that particular fluid which is having the maximum temperature drop potential. How to figure it out? Okay. Let us do it over here. It is very simple and straightforward. So, if I can look at the delta T of the, maybe I will go back over here. So, what I am trying to do is try and figure out that if my hot fluid is going from 90 to 80 degree and my cold fluid is going from very low temperature, let us say 10 to over here, which is 70 degree. So, this is the hot side clearly, this is the cold side. By looking at this particular diagram, can I tell which is greater? Is it CH is greater than CC or CC is greater than CH, where these capital C is the heat capacity rate, which I have already defined over here. Now, the trick is if we can figure out what is the ratio of delta T's. So, I can solve this particular thing arithmetically over here, which means whatever is the heat gain by this particular cold was the heat lost by the Q dot over here. So, if I am equating both these Q dots, I can simply write CH into delta TH is equals to CC into delta TC. Do not get confused, it is very straightforward. What is the value of delta TH? It is simply the loss in temperature by the hot fluid. So, over here it turns out to be I am multiplying by 10. What is delta Tc? The gain in temperature for the cold fluid. So, how much it is? 70 minus 10, it is 60, which means very easily I have figured out over here that the hot fluid heat capacity rate. So, remember this term over here, this is the heat capacity rate, is almost 6 times the heat capacity rate for the cold fluid in my example over here. This is just an example I am taking, but I have clearly shown in this example CH is 6 times higher than CC, right. Now, I can go back to this green equation over here. Now, let me ask you that which one will I put over here? Already delta is max, which means the minimum C I have to put, which means I can clearly write this has to be minimum. And where did this minimum come from? So, I will mathematically define it like this, that what is this C min is whichever is the minimum between these two numbers. So, this is I am writing min, min, capital CH, capital CC, whichever is minimum, that I will choose as the symbol C min, and that thing will go over here in this equation. Then I am safe, because what I am doing is between the two fluids I am taking whichever is having the minimum heat capacity rate, multiplying it with the delta T. I can't take the one which is having highest heat capacity rate and multiply it with delta T. What I will get? I will get some 6 times huge number, which is not correct according to energy balance. I hope you are getting it, because I am artificially taking the delta T, I have to take the C minimum, I can't take maximum over there. And this is a very powerful equation over here, which I have written in blue, and let me highlight it in red as well over here. I do not have space over here. So, let me take one more sheet and rewrite this equation very clearly. So, what I am writing over here is Q dot max, I think I have written that, yeah. So, in each case I am writing Q dot max is essentially C min multiplied by delta T max. And what is this delta T max? I have already defined 2 or 3 slides back. I have defined delta T max is simply the highest temperature in my system, which is TH in, minus the coldest temperature in my system, which is TC in. So, I get this is delta. Why am I doing all this exercise, long equation? I just want to figure out the expression for epsilon. You remember, this was my objective. Now, I have figured out what is the denominator. Okay. Now, let me try and see, is there a way I can get an expression out of it? Why am I doing all these calculations? Ultimately, remember, this method name is, if we started over here, epsilon NTU method. And NTU we have given some hint earlier in the convection that NTU stands for number of transfer units, which means kind of indication of the length or the area of the heat exchanger. In this particular case, that will be our heat exchanger. So, we are trying to figure out, can we write some equation between epsilon and NTU. So, we will figure out later in simple cases, it turns out we can get something like this. Oops. So, NTU is again a non-dimensionalized number, epsilon is again non-dimensionalized. Can we get simple relation like this? Because then we will be able to correlate the effectiveness of a heat exchanger with the amount of area or the length that is required for its calculation. So, let us go ahead and do. So, that is our objective. Can we find something like this? And the answer is yes. For that, let us do some sort of a energy balance over here. So, what we want to do is, we want to figure out the effectiveness relations. And the case we will consider, the first case we will consider is parallel flow heat exchanger, and the method will be simple for all heat exchangers, which will give us very nice result. So, let me quickly draw the schematic for the parallel flow heat exchanger. So, we have two pipes, one inside the other. Let us say the hot fluid is entering over here, flows, comes out over here. So, hot temperature TH in, this is TH out. Okay. The cold fluid enters from this side, cold in, and this is TC out. So, I can show with blue arrows that the flow is taking place in this direction, and the same thing I can draw as a temperature profile over here. This is a function of x. I think I made a mistake, sorry about that. Because we are dealing with, let me see, how do I correct it? Yeah, I have to erase some parts. Because we are dealing with parallel flow, we have to show the flow to be parallel. I think I by mistake showed it in the counter direction. Let me correct it. Sorry. So, TC in, because it is parallel flow, please remember both flows will be in the same direction. Sorry for that, I was trying to do it little bit in hurry. So, I made a mistake, we have to do it slowly. So, cold temperature we can plot something like this. So, this is just a general profile that we may expect to get. This is the cold side, and similarly we can draw for the hot side over here, that high temperature will become slightly lower over here. It is going to lose its heat, and this is something we have done earlier, and this is the hot side. Okay. What we want to do over here is take a differential element of length dx. So, this distance is dx, and the same thing we will do over here, small distance dx. Now, if I use the orange ink over here, this is the differential element that I am interested in. I can clearly write that some sort of heat is coming out from this, which is going from the red fluid to the blue fluid, which means from the hot fluid to the cold fluid. Because it is a small differential element, I can write it as dq dot. The same thing I can show over here, that the amount of heat transfer which is taking place over here is del q dot. And students may remember, this is some sort of an analysis we have done, I think 2 lectures back, when we were looking at the derivation of the LMTD method. So, we are going to borrow some expressions which we already have in our slides, I think 2 lectures back, and we will start from that particular point. Which means, if you go back and look into your notes, there was one equation that we had looked at which appeared like this. So, this was the portion that we had looked at while covering the LMTD method. So, temperature difference between hot outlet and cold outlet divided by the hot inlet and cold inlet, and this we had written as a function of minus UAS bracket, and over here we will get CH, capital CH, capital CC. So, these are the heat capacity rates. So, this is where we are going to start, and I will bring one of these C's outside. So, I can write it in this way. So, maybe I will bring the cold C outside. So, this is capital C cold and this will become 1 plus C c divided by C h. Okay. And let me circle this particular point and call this equation number 1. So, this is green thing is my equation number 1. Let me see if I have written it correctly. Okay, good. The second thing that I am going to write is from energy balance we already have this equation which is simply Q dot is m C p delta T. So, instead of m C p I am going to replace it with capital C. So, what do I get? T cold outlet, T cold inlet is equals to C h T hot inlet minus T hot outlet. So, from this equation I can get the expression for T hot outlet, that is I am showing with this arrow over here. So, T hot outlet is the expression I get something like this. I am just taking a ratio. So, simple algebra I am doing over here, and this I will circle and put as equation number 2. So, do not worry, these are just 2 equations, we need 2 more. So, we ultimately will have 3-4 equations, we will play around with that very slowly. So, you do not need to worry about that. So, these are the 2 equations. If somebody asks, sir, where did we get equation number 1, I will refer them. I wrote it directly because this is something we have already got when we were doing the LMTD analysis for parallel flow heat exchangers. How did we get equation 2? This is simply energy balance. So, from energy balance we are getting equation 2, very straightforward. Let me also write equation number 3, which I think you can recognize very easily because this we just wrote in the last slide. So, this is by definition for effectiveness. Now, what I am going to do is plug in these values over here. So, Q dot I can pick from here, it is either cold or hot, maybe I will pick cold. So, this is C c, T c out, T c in, simply energy balance. What was Q dot max? C min, minimum heat capacity rate multiplied by T max. T max was T h I T c I, and this I will put again a green box over here. So, do not worry, we are getting very close. So, these 3 equations we are having, that is it. So, these 3 equations how did we get? Equation number 1 on the top which are given over here, we are getting it. Why? Because we have already got it from the LMTD analysis, is also got very easily. Equation number 2, I will put a star over here, directly from energy balance. Equation 3, directly from definition of effectiveness, this is the ratio for effectiveness. Only thing that we need to do now over here is solve these 3 equations for epsilon. Epsilon is already given expression over there, we will eliminate some of the other terms, and this whole thing we are doing for which heat exchanger? Please remember, we are doing it for the parallel flow heat exchanger. This whole exercise, some of the general equations may be true, but eventually the expression that we will get is only for the parallel flow. Let us see what the expression we will get. So, I am not solving these equations, rather for students I am writing over here, please solve for epsilon, which is effectiveness, using equation 1, 2 and 3, we will get the following. So, very beautiful result we are getting. So, I will write that this is for parallel flow, epsilon for parallel flow turns out to be simply a ratio, and that ratio is 1 minus exponential minus UAS divided by capital C c bracket 1 plus C c divided by C h, okay. Erase this line over here, divided by 1 plus C c by C h into C min by C c. So, is it a simple equation or a little bit tedious one? Right now it appears little bit tough, but I will assure the student will simplify it very easily right now. So, just for the sake of numbering, let me put it as equation number 4. So, I will write this is my equation number 4. How did I write equation 4? Spend some time, just look by substituting equation 1 and 2 in 3 and solving for epsilon. This is the expression we will get. So, I will close this bracket over here. This was the bracket that we forgot to close. Now, let me make two substitutions. The first substitution will bring the definition of NTU. So, do we remember from one of those chapters of convective heat transfer, NTU was number of transfer units, and it kind of indicated something like how much big the area should be, and we remember that NTU we do not want to go more than 5, because after that the rate of return is very low. So, it is kind of like proportional to area proportional to H divided with how much low the mass flow rate is, because the lower mass flow rate NTU increases, which means mass flow rate should be in denominator. Same thing with the specific heat, lower specific heat, higher NTU. So, if we remember, I can directly write NTU expression over here. I will choose a different color over here. So, in that chapter we had got something like this. So, I will just put a cross over here, because in heat exchangers we are not using H, we are using the overall heat transfer coefficient AS, and instead of using this m dot Cp, I am going to use C min. I will put a note over here, and then I am putting too many equations today. So, there are 5 equations. So, do not get scared, very simple answer we are getting very soon. And the last one is that we will define something called the capacity ratio. So, let me also write, if somebody is by chance missed that earlier lecture that they do not remember, this is number of transfer units, and this whole unit will turn out to be, it is dimensionless. It is just a number 1, 2, 3, 4, there is no dimensions to it. Now, we will define something called the capacity ratio. This is again capital C R, and this we will define as capital C R is the ratio if the two heat capacity rates, whatever is lower goes in the numerator, whatever is smaller comes down in the denominator. This becomes equation number 6, which is also the ratio that we had earlier. You remember the two specific heat ratios we got, one was 6 times higher than the other. So, if we were doing that actual calculation, CR value would be 6. So, I think we are going in the right direction, good. Now, why am I adding these equation 5 and 6? Was not 4 okay by itself? I want to generalize this equation number 4. Why? Because I want to write epsilon as a function of NTU and also of capacity ratio CR. Why am I doing it? Because I want to reduce all the information which I will be getting later on in some simple curves and figures. As human being, we want to reduce all the available information in as simple terms as possible. So, if I can get some sort of correlation like this with NTU numbers over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this CR value 1, CR value 2, CR value 3, then CR value, I am going in the other way around, I think 0, 0, then 0.1, 0.2 or something, anyway it can go in any way. Then from here, if we have this sort of a generalized figure or a table, so students and our heat transfer community, people can always refer to this figure, figure out NTU essentially depends how big my heat exchanger is. So, how big this heat exchanger, should it be non-dimensionalized number 4 or 5, then CR value is the ratio of the two heat capacity rates of the two fluids. Then immediately from that I will be able to figure out where I am getting effectiveness equal to 1. So, how close am I to the maximum heat transfer rate which is possible. So, this is just a motivation that I am showing over here, and using these equations 4, 5 and 6, let me go ahead and write the final expression that we are going to get on the next slide. So, what we are getting is that for parallel flow FLOW flow, then for parallel flow it will turn out to be a very simple expression like this ratio over here. So, 1 minus exponential minus NTU 1 plus CR divided by 1 plus CR, that is it. So, see how simple this expression had turned out to be, and this I can write in general terms that epsilon is a function of NTU as well as of CR. Okay. And similar expression we can write for counter flow as well. We will have to do that exercise very rigorously once more. I am not going to do that because of lack of time, but I encourage students, please go ahead and do it yourself. It will be very interesting result that we get. So, that final expression I am providing over here, and it will turn out to be something like this. So, this expression will be true if CR is less than 1. What happens if CR is equal to 1? Then in that case we will take the limits and then solve it. It will turn out to be very simple expression. So, these are both for counter flow. This is for counter flow, this is for counter flow, this is for CR equals to 1. By the way, what does CR equal to 1 mean? Can we do a quick recap? CR was capacity ratio. So, capacity ratio equal to 1 means m dot Cp of both the fluids are actually equal. So, I think we get very interesting results. Now, let us go ahead and look at those figures and tables which I had put in the early portion of this particular lecture. So, let me go back quickly. I hope everybody is able to understand what we have done over here. So, epsilon value that we wanted to figure out. So, I think this is where we had started today's lecture. We wanted to figure out that what would be the expression between epsilon, NTU and CR. So, with all this long exercise we have been able to achieve our objective. Now, let us go over here, and these are the two expressions that we have looked at. So, these are standard equations which are available in almost all the textbooks. Now, we give a very interesting curve over here. So, we will look at these two cases. On the left hand side we have parallel flow, on the right hand side we have counter flow. So, for the time being forget counter flow, please just pay attention to the parallel flow over here. So, this is a typical effectiveness curve where on the y axis we have effectiveness. What do we have on x axis? It is NTU. So, NTU we can write over here was UAS divided by C min. Essentially speaking, if NTU value is going from 2 to 5, let us say, our cost will increase. So, x axis represents our cost. If I have lot of money, I have all the material in the world which is available, I have boiling, condensation taking place. So, our NTU value is going to be very high. Okay. In usual circumstances, cost is always a limitation because area is also a limitation. Heat exchanger, one thing we did not talk about, weight is also very important. I can design the world's perfect heat exchanger which could have very high effectiveness value equal to 1, but if it is very long copper tubes or aluminum tubes inside it, it will have a finite weight. If the weight of my AC turns out to be let us say 300 kg, then it would not be able to commercialize it because people can't even lift it and move it around. You need special foundation to keep that kind of heat exchanger. So, if it is half ton or 1 ton heat exchanger, then it is only available commercially. For domestic use we cannot use, which means this is how we have understood the significance of NTU, it is very significant. So, this is in other terms it is directly related to the cost. Effectiveness of course is very simple, that we want to aim as high effectiveness as possible. What is this ratio C min by C max? This is essentially our value of CR. So, C min by C max we have already taken as, you remember we have written capital CR was C min by C max. Okay. So, let us look at the first curve, this first red one which I will highlight as green color over here. So, what does C min is equal to CR mean? That C min is equals to C max. Then we are on this particular curve over here because capital C R value is 1. What it means physically is the both fluid the heat capacity rates are similar. Okay. then is it the best case or the worst case? I would say that for almost all NTU value, for a given NTU value of let us say 4, then I can have this or this particular point. Which one would I prefer? I think I should go for highest heat transfer rate. So, I want very high epsilon, I should be in this particular zone. What it tells essentially is that our CR value as close as 0, it is much better, right. And what does CR equals to 0 mean? So, I will ask that question to the student, what does CR equals to 0 mean? So, if I write that expression again over here, CR equals to 0 mean numerator cannot be 0 because mass flow rate is finite, specific heat is finite. What means is, can the denominator be infinity? So, that is my question to student. Denominator is also mass times specific heat. So, mass is never infinity, usually we can allow a lot of flow rate, but is there some way effectively specific heat is infinity? So, the answer is yes, an effective heat specific heat could be infinity if phase change is taking place. Because you remember even from Joule's time, specific heat was what definition? That amount of heat needed, you remember in school we studied 1 calorie per gram degree centigrade, something like that. So, essentially it is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature by 1 degree or 1 Kelvin for a specific fixed amount of a material. It could be 1 gram or 1 kg or something. So, for water it turns out to be around 4000 joules per kg I can give, then I can expect its temperature to rise by 1 degree. And it is not always true. Let us say water is already at 100 degree, almost saturated liquid, I give it again 4000 joules, its temperature, do you think it will rise? No, because it will take all that energy in latent form and it will evaporate, boil some portion of water. So, some portion becomes steam, but again still remain at 1000 degree. So, it is kind of like I have to give infinite amount of heat at that particular point to raise its temperature. So, mathematically I can say it is infinity, which means this is infinity or CR is 0 when under two conditions, when either boiling or condensation is taking place. So, I think I gave a long expression, but everybody can analyze it at their own pace, and the same thing is true in the counter flow case as well. So, again if I pick the NTU value as 4, so we see over here we have these 5 dots over here, they become very close to one another, but let me pick 2 points which I will compare between these two particular curves. So, I want to make this orange over here, maybe I will pick another color, I will make it light blue, this point and this light blue point over here. This point I call as A and this guy I call as B. So, there are a lot of similarities between point A and point B. What are the similarity? Both have the same NTU value. This is NTU 4, this is NTU 4. Okay. Both have CR value equals to 1. But look at the effectiveness value. Here the effectiveness value is only 0.5, which means I can write effectiveness of point A is 0.5. Effectiveness of point B is very high, 80 or 0.8, or I can say it is 80%. So, this one-on-one comparison has shown us very clearly that under identical operating conditions, same ratio of the specific heat, same NTU, which means the same length, counter flow heat exchanger is performing much better than the parallel flow heat exchanger, and I think that is generally true, which is why in principle our counter flow heat exchanger is one of the best performing heat exchanger in terms of this one effectiveness. So, very quickly we will do the same analysis next slide, where we will change the type of heat exchangers that we are looking at. I hope this concept is now clear, how to look at these curves, how to figure out the values. We just look at over here and we can figure out, if we know two things, either NTU or CR, we can calculate the value of epsilon. I think this is very straightforward for engineers. Now, we see the difference between, we were talking earlier, one shell pass and two shell pass with multiple of tube passes over here. So, what is going on over here? The same type of curves are given, that what is the effectiveness value at different NTUs. So, we can compare over here as well, that this point B, which is having the value 80%, none of the heat exchanger is able to beat that value. So, over here it is still 60% and over here it is still 62 to 65%, is not it? Or maybe higher, sorry, 72% or something. So, here effectiveness is 72, here effectiveness is 60%. So, still even among all the 4 cases we can clearly see that counter flow heat exchanger is best from a heat transfer point of view. But in reality we do not see it many times around us, just because its area is going to be very large. So, in order to bend it around, then we go for cross flow or for shell and tube type heat exchangers. So, one or two very small things that we can see which are very interesting over here is that if we make CR go to 0, that whatever type of heat exchanger we are having for all type, all the epsilon NTU curve turned out to have a simple single line. So, this thing represents epsilon NTU for CR equals to 0, and I think I will remind student what did CR equal to 0 mean, that it is either a boiler, boiling is taking place or condensation is taking place, which is why that when we started the heat exchanger topic, before that we have looked in huge detail about the boiling, in pool boiling, flow boiling, nucleation side, then condensation, drop wise, film condensation. That was very important, because in heat exchanger it turns out that if you are having the phase change, its performance is almost the best over here, and the expression for that turns out to be very simple expression like this. So, this is true for all heat exchanger if CR value is 0, which means we can even try it over here, that parallel flow expression put CR equals to 0, do we get this? Answer is yes. Counter flow put CR equals to 0, we will get all these expressions. Isn't it beautiful in nature that all of them they become one when the phase change is taking place, and I think it is very commendable. So, I would expect students, please take out some time, try and revise it very nicely, and I think we have few minutes remaining. So, I want to come back to what we have promised earlier, that we want to look at one same solved example that we did in last lecture. So, we will do it little bit quickly, but I think students can follow it very nicely, because it is very straightforward, and I think we did it already once. Earlier we have done it using the LMTD method. We calculated the value of AS, and if my data is correct, it turned out to be this value 23.5. Now, today I am going to do little bit fast the same thing using NTU method, and let me try and see what value of AS do I get. Okay. Can I do it little fast, because we have already done it once. So, TH in, which was oil, value was 100 degree, oil flows over here, comes out at 80 degree. So, you can see it immediately, it was the same problem, but I want to use now a different method to solve it. So, it is a counter flow, water is going over here, to cold water in was 40 degree. So, the first step that we did was we calculated the value of cold water out. So, that one I am not going to calculate once again. If I remember correctly, it turned out to be 93, and this is how the diagram had looked like. So, it goes from 100 to 80 degree, this is hot, and the cold one goes from 40 to 93 degrees. This is the cold side. What I want to do now is, I want to do the same exercise, but using the NTU method. So, what is step 1 in NTU method? I have to calculate Q dot max or epsilon or delta T max. So, which is the easiest to calculate? Of course, I will calculate the value of delta T max over here. I forgot to write the values of mass flow rate, let me put that as well. So, mass flow rate of oil I think was 1 kgs per second, and mass flow rate of water was I think 0.2 kgs per second. So, looking at all these numbers, the maximum temperature difference is TH in minus TC in, which is 100 minus 40. These are the two highest temperature and the lowest temperature. So, it turns out to be 60 degrees. And I can correlate it with Q dot max by multiplying with C min. Now, which of these two fluids is having the highest temperature drop? Is it the oil, which is shown in red over here, or is it water? So, water is having the highest temperature drop, which immediately tells me that C mean will be for water, which is cold. So, I say C mean is equals to C C. Can I say that? I hope the students are able to figure this out by themselves, because why have we done it quickly? Because here the temperature difference is how much? In water, this temperature difference is 93 minus 40, 53 temperature, 53 degrees. In oil, the temperature difference between inlet and outlet is only 20 degrees. So, this tells me immediately by looking at temperature differences is that huge amount of oil heat capacity must be there. That is why its delta T is less. Water's delta T is high, which means the water heat capacity C C must be low, and that is what I have written over here, that C C is the one which I will take as the C min. Okay. Now, Q dot max I have figured out from here. What is the value of Q dot actual? Why do I need it? Because I want to calculate the value of epsilon by taking the ratio. So, let me write in terms of water. So, what I will do is for water I will write, because why am I doing it? Because I want to simplify my equation. This is already T H in minus T cold in, C C, C cold for the water, and for actual also I will also use m dot C C P C T C O minus T C in. Now, the good thing is these two terms will get cancelled out, because these are both for water, isn't it? T water out 93 degree, T water in 43 degree, highest temperature 100, lowest temperature 40. So, what I am doing is calculating the ratio 53 by 60, which turned out to be 88, which means just look, we have calculated very easily that in this particular case heat exchanger effectiveness is actually pretty good. We are at 88%, that is not bad. We can also calculate the value of CR, which is C min by C max, which is for C of water divided by, this is capital C. So, this exercise I will leave to the student, but I will just present the final answer will turn out to be 0.38. So, CR value, if I calculate this ratio, turns out to be 0.38. Now, I have epsilon at 88%, CR is 0.38. All I need to do is figure out the value of NTU. How do I do that? There are two ways. One is I can look at the figure, the other one is I can solve the equation. So, kind of only one remit is remaining. So, I want to do it fast. So, I will look at the figure. Can I do that? Let us go back quickly, and remember we are which type of heat exchanger right now? We are counter flow, and what is the value that we are looking for in our solved example? From memory I am writing epsilon was 88% and CR was 0.38. Now, I will continue with the purple color over here, epsilon 88%. So, I am at which point? I am going to assume it is very close to 90. So, this line I am on. Okay. So, this is my x axis, I have to figure out from here. CR value, where am I? So, 38% is somewhere between these two, right, between 25 and 50%. So, let me look at these 2 points. So, somewhere in middle I am over here. So, if I can choose this particular point, it is not bad actually. Do you see what I am trying to say? This particular purple dot over here, it aligns very good with the epsilon value, and it is right in between the 25 and 50% CR value, which means over here if I go forward, downward rather, NTU I will say is kind of close to 3. So, please remember students, what I have done in this particular figure is an approximate solution. So, just I want to do it fast, that is why I thought I will do it approximately right now, but I would encourage students to do it more accurately later by using the equation. So, if NTU value it turns out to be 3, how can I get the value of AS from NTU? It is very straightforward. NTU is simply UAS divided by C min. All values I know now. I can do the arithmetic, and it so turns out that my answer is about 25 meters square. So, this I did quickly because I have a calculator with me. Now, let us see what did we get with the LMTD method. So, not bad. LMTD, the exact value turned out to be 23.5. Here the value is slightly different because we have used certain approximations when we went to the figure. So, I think in interest of time, let me stop over here but I would encourage students to actually solve this method with the help of this equation as well. So, I am putting orange mark over here. Please go ahead and try and solve it with this equation, and I have done that thing myself. If I did it with the equation accurate method, then I get NTU value exactly turns out to be about 2.76, and based on this my AS value turns out to be 23 meters square. So, if I use the equation method, then it is 23 meters square, which is kind of close to this. So, some difference is still remaining, but look how nice method it turns out to be. We can look at the equation form as well, we can look at the figure form as well. So, with this we kind of complete the analysis for heat exchangers, because we wanted to look at the LMTT method, which we have done earlier, and the second method, the epsilon NTU method. I hope the students enjoyed looking at the analysis for the thermal analysis for heat exchangers. With that, I thank you very much. Thank you.